what's good? I am Professor Khalil Amani, and this is Khalil Amani's World 100. Welcome back, most of y'all, welcome back. And if you're new over here, welcome to my channel. I would love to have your vote of a subscription. It's a new channel, and we're building it up. I've had channels with 14,000 subscribers on it, and we're working toward that number. But our goal right now is 500 right now. So why don't you subscribe to my channel? I promise you, I bring a lot of good stuff. Very little beef, just a little beef, and a lot of Bible teaching and history teaching and talking about religious cults and government informants and hip-hop and sports and literature and fashion, the club scene. I just talk about what I do in my world, traveling. I talk about what I do in my world. That's right. In Khalil Amani's world. Fix that camera a little bit. That's better. So welcome to my channel. I am freshly home. I got home Monday. I've been home 2 days now. I was in Atlanta, me and my beautiful wife, Miss Wanda. We went down for the 100th anniversary of the rivalry, the HBCU, Historically Black College and University. We went down to Florida, Orlando, and we witnessed the Florida A&M University Rattlers go up against the Bethune-Cookman University Wildcats. And although FAMU is leading in the win department, Bethune-Cookman University won this 100th anniversary of the rivalry between Bethune and FAMU. Of course, I sat on the side of Bethune-Cookman. We had a gay old time. My best friend from Miami came up with his lovely lady friend, and we just had a wonderful time. We went to a Brazilian restaurant after that. On my best friend's dime, he paid for it. He said, I'm paying. The check was $460-something for 4 of us. That's an expensive 5-star restaurant for your ass. All kind of meats came out, from pork to chicken to all kinds of steaks, lamb chops, you name it, it came out. They just kept bringing it to the table. It's kind of like that restaurant called Texas de Brazil, but more upscale. So I had a great time there, and I got a chance to see my son, my daughter-in-law, and my 4 beautiful grandchildren. See, some of you out there that follow me and know me, you be focused on my 1 grandson. I got 12 of those bambinos. So I went to go see another 4 of them. And they saw me and my wife. Grandpa! Grandma! They ran up to us. Oh, the love is fantastic. I love my son so much. I love my daughter-in-law so much. We got a great family. So that was my weekend. It was one for the ages, one to remember. Ate a lot of good food. The flight going and coming was great, fantastic, wonderful time. But now we're back, and we want to put a button. We want to put a button on this conversation about the wilderness, the Hebrews wandering, all that good stuff. We want to put a button on it and close it out. Because I have a lot of other stuff I would love to talk about. Facts and indeed. I have a lot of stuff I would love to talk about. Facts and indeed. So we want to talk a little bit about this God of the Bible. Oh, he's a terrible fellow. He's a terrible fellow. Have you ever thought that if you were the only person ever on earth, have you ever pondered the idea that if you somehow was born into this world, just you and your mama and daddy, maybe three of you all, you, your mama and daddy, the only three humans on this earth, have you ever pondered the fact that you probably wouldn't know about a thing called God? Have you ever thought that everything you know, everything you know about God, the Bible, Jesus, divinity, it was taught to you by somebody else? That you weren't born with God consciousness. You weren't born believing and knowing that there is something supposedly greater than you in the universe. That all we know, I don't care what your religion is, Christian, Jew, Muslim, Hebrew, Israelite, Catholic, Protestant, whatever. Everything we know about this thing called God, somebody gave it to us. Somebody gave it to us. And the fact of the matter is that men, I don't say women, men specifically, they built the caricature of God. They built the prototypical God based on human emotions and human assumptions and human doings and activities. That man created God. God did not create man. Now when I say man created God, I'm not being facetious. Man created God in man's own image. Now there may or there may not be, I said there may or there may not be a real God out there in space. There may not or there may be a higher power out there. But I am thoroughly unconvinced that the portrayal of this superior being has been encapsulated in what we call the Bible. There's so many stories in the Bible that are so ungodly that men from ages gone by expect me in the 21st century as a free-thinking, truth-seeking individual to swallow. And I'm not swallowing them. I'm not swallowing them. For I submit to you all that the God of the Bible is a terrible, terrible fella. Don't get it twisted. It's motherfuck the God of the Bible, not the God of creation, and not the God of the universe. Not the God who set in motion everything we know. But those ancient writers that built this God and put him in a book, I say they got it wrong. I say they got it very wrong. But like we humans, we earthlings, when it comes to the higher power, when it comes to God, we'd rather be told about that person, about that entity. We'd rather have our religion neatly packaged, gift wrapped with a nice little bow on the top that's handed down from mom and them, who got it from their mom and them, who got it from their mama them, who got it from their mama them, and the beat goes on. None of us have spoken to God. None of us have heard the voice of God. None of us have seen God. But we have this book that is supposed to be our guide. The Bible. They've made the word Bible into an acronym. Basic instruction before leaving earth. B-I-B-L-E. Bible. Basic instructions before leaving earth. How cute. How cute. But in my studies, and I've done more studies on God, Bible, and religion than the average. I don't personally know anybody who's studied the Bible more than I have. On YouTube or off YouTube. I don't know them. And as much as I wanted to find the footprint of God, as much as I want to find this deity, as much as I want to nail him down to the superior being that he is, the great being that he is, I find that this God of the Bible is a tragic figure. A trickster God, to say the least. And I find that the ancient Israelites, the ancient Jews, or the ancient Hebrews, that they were as much into mythology as the Egyptians and the Sumerians and the Akkadians and the Babylonians and the Greeks and the Assyrians and the Romans. As much as Christians and Jews or Israelites want to fancy themselves above the fray of mythology, they're not. And the fact that they think they are, the fact that they think the Bible is true historicity is a word, by the way. The fact that people believe the Bible is fact and no mythology and no fiction, it shows you how brainwashed mythology has them. It does. And so the composite figure that we call God, he's a bad fellow. What do I mean by that? Well, you just have to look. If we read with comprehension, if we read without fear of being struck by lightning for talking about the God of the Bible, most of us would become atheists. But because we are fearful about critiquing and deconstructing and taking to task the God of the Bible, not the real God, but the God of the Bible. I got to keep saying that because some of you will hear this and go, he's talking about God. I am not talking about the real deal Holyfield that turned on the lights in this universe, if there be such a person. But the God of the Bible, when you read with clarity and comprehension, as I have done for many, many years, over 4 decades, over 40 years, I don't want nothing to do with the God of the Bible. I'm sorry, I'm not sorry. For I have found that the God of the Bible is murderous. He's homicidal. The God of the Bible is petty and jealous. He's a proud mofo. The God of the Bible is unjust. He's unforgiving. He's a goddamn control freak. This is what I get when I read the Bible. The God of the Bible is vindictive. He's bloodthirsty. The God of the Bible is an ethnic cleanser. And I could pull scriptures out for everything I just called them. I said the God of the Bible is an ethnic cleanser. The God that man has created in the Bible, he's misogynistic. He's women hating. The God of the Bible is racist. The God of the Bible is filicidal. You know what the word filicidal means? A filicidal person is an adult parent who kills his or her children. We are called the children of Israel. We are called the children of God. And we call this God our Father, i.e. our parent. But we have a God, we have a parent, and we have a Father who's filicidal. We have a parent in the God of the Bible who believes in murdering and killing and unaliving his children, us. The word is filicidal. The God of the Bible is not just filicidal, parents who murder children. The God of the Bible is also genocidal. He instructs one group of people to go to another people's land and murder them and wipe them out. Men, women, and children. They call that genocide. This is the God of the Bible. The God of the Bible is not only is he filicidal, which means a parent who kills a child, he's also infanticidal. I said the God of the Bible is infanticidal. He tells one group of people to put blood over their doors, on the lintels of the doors, and he says at midnight, I'm coming through. I'm sending my death angels to murder newborn babies and the firstborn of Egyptian children, of African babies. This is the God of the Bible. The God of the Bible is pestilent. He uses all kinds of animals and creatures to get at us. Pestilent also means he sends diseases and plagues, leprosy and AIDS and all kinds of different types of pestilent plagues to murder and wipe out whole populations. Yeah. I'm just telling you about the God that men have created and put it in a book called the Bible. The God of the Bible is capricious. You know what it means to be capricious? It means you have unaccountable changes in mood and behavior. Sudden, unaccountable moods, and you're given to be moody You're bitchy. You don't know if you woke up on the right side of the bed this morning. Your mood and your behavior change. That's what it means to be capricious. That's the God of the Bible. And again, I can give you scriptures proving everything I'm saying. The God of the Bible is malevolent. Not benevolent. He's malevolent. You know what malevolent means? It means he seeks. He wishes to do harm and evil to other people. Yes, he does. The God of the Bible, he needs to go to Gamblers Anonymous. I said the God of the Bible, he needs to go to Gamblers Anonymous. He wagered a man named Job's whole life, family, wife, children, livestock, his riches. He gambled. He needs Gamblers Anonymous. He's got a gambling problem. He looks down on a man like Job that the Bible says he was perfect. I know a lot of y'all think only Jesus was perfect. The only man in the Bible perfect is Jesus. Well, you must haven't read Job 1:1. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright. He feared God and eschewed evil. God still gambled his life away. That's why I don't want nothing to do with the God of the Bible. You can be like Job and God still fuck with you. Or God will let the so-called devil fuck with you. Let me show it to you. Psalms, Proverbs, the Job next, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon. I missed it. Job. There we go. Job 1:1. Got a man like Job that's walking around the earth doing everything that his Lord and Savior has told and commanded him to do. Still, God fucks with the man. How does the song go? What's it all about, Alfie? What's it all about, Alfie? What's it all about? Does the God of the Bible have any shame? Ain't there some bad people that God could go fuck with and make bets with? And why is the God even entertaining a fellow like Satan, like Lucifer, the great dragon, the serpent, the devil, that we are told he kicked out of heaven, him and 1/3 of the hosts of heaven? God got a hard on for Satan. You kick Lucifer, the devil, the great dragon, the serpent. You kick him out of heaven. Next thing you know, you over there cohorting with the motherfucker you kicked out of heaven. And you allow this motherfucker called the Satan, the devil, to fuck with one of the most righteous men on earth. I said, if you thought Jesus was the only perfect person, matter of fact, Jesus was not perfect, but that's another conversation. But let me show you a real perfect man. We're talking about Job. Job 1:1. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was perfect. Now don't start trying to add or take away. Don't start trying to make excuses for the word perfect. the Bible says that Job was perfect and upright, and one that feared God, respected God, and eschewed or hated evil. That's right. And then we find him down here. And we find it down here in the same book. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord. And Satan came also among them. And the Lord said unto Satan, Whence cometh thou? Whence cometh thou? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and an upright man, one that feareth God and eschewed evil? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, Doth Job fear God for naught? Hast thou not made a hedge about him, and about his house, and about all that he hath on every side? Thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land. But put forth thine hand now, and touch all that he hath, and he will curse thee to thy face. And the Lord said unto Satan, Behold, all that he hath is in thy power, Satan. Only upon himself put not forth thine hand. So Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord. I want to show you, I'm going off the dome. This ain't even the topic of my conversation. But this is the God that we worship. It's actually God who points Satan in the direction of this perfect and upright man named Job. Why does God feel like he must prove a point to his nemesis, to his arch enemy? Why does he do that? Why does God care about what Satan thinks? He's a weirdo, God, I tell you. But you motherfuckers want this man. When you die, this is where you want to go. When I die, I don't want to go him. I don't want to go to the God of this Bible. I don't want to go there. Satan wasn't thinking about Job's black ass. It was God who suggested that Satan fuck with Job. God says to Satan, Where you coming from, bitch nigga? Where you coming from, bitch nigga? I'm talking in the language of today's. And Job said, and Satan says, I've been going up and down in the earth, to and fro. I've been going from hither to thither, from there to there. I've been going to and fro and up and down in the earth, looking to be mischievous. That's all Satan said to God. What does this bitch nigga, the God of the Bible, do? He takes a person who is like none other in the earth, as the book says. You trying to cause mischief? I tell you what, I got a servant named Moses. I have a servant named Moses. I'll let you take everything away from him. You just can't kill him. I'll take my protection away from around. I'll take my hedge of protection from around Job. And he's still gonna love my dirty draws. And Satan said, yeah? You think so? I bet if you stop protecting him, he'll curse you to your motherfucking face, Yahweh God. Did Job deserve this shit? No, he didn't. Why does the God of the Bible think he must prove a point to the motherfucker that brought chaos and calamity in the world? What's wrong with this God of the Bible? Why didn't this God of the Bible just murder, just destroy, just kill Satan in heaven when he rebelled? Why did he give Satan a get out of jail free card in the first place? Why does the God of heaven say, I tell you what, I know you got 1/3 of the host of heaven following your ass, but I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to kick you out of heaven, and I got some creation down on earth. I got a man and a woman named Adam and Eve down there on earth. Go fuck with them. They my children, but you can fuck with them. And then, back to this man Job. This man Job. Wife, children, animals, riches. The Bible calls him 2 times perfect and upright. Fears God, eschews evil. Why God did that? Why God had to do that? This is what I mean when I call him capricious. He has a sudden unaccountable moves and shifts and changes. That's why I call him, he's a malevolent bully. He's a malevolent bully. He seeks to do evil to other people for no reason. Or he plays with the lives of people who are said to be perfect and upright, because he values the opinion of Satan. He values the opinion of Satan. So much so that he allowed Satan to murder Job's family, kill off his cattle, his children, just do him dirty. All to prove a point to this motherfucker named Satan, who don't like God, that Satan will remain in love with and will never curse God, no matter how bad life gets, no matter what's thrown his way. Talk about egoism. This nigga is egotistical as fuck. But we aren't allowed to take a critical and deconstructive look at this bullshit in the book of Job, where the God of creation gambles with another man's life, with the lives of other people. Where the God of creation allows a man's children and wives to be murdered to prove a point to a bastard known as Satan. You niggas eat this shit up. You don't find no fault in a God like this to prove a stupid point that a man named Job will remain humble and will not curse God even when God takes everything he has from him. He wants to prove this shit to a bastard named Satan. God got his priorities all fucked up, I tell you. I don't find nothing redeeming. I said, I do not find anything redeeming about the story of Satan and Lord and the little gambling bet they made. There's nothing redeeming about that story. There's nothing satisfying about that story. There's nothing that makes me go, oh. I don't care that in the very end, God multiplies his sustenance and gives him, wives and children. I don't care about all that. The pain and the heartache that a man who is perfect and upright must be used and abused by God to prove a point to Satan. That's the kind of God y'all like, right? I said, this God of the Bible, he's a piece of work, I tell you. I don't see nothing redeeming. I don't see nothing godly or holy about what he did with Job. Nothing. I see a man that we call God who's as worse as the Satan, devil, Lucifer himself. I said God needs to go to Gamblers Anonymous. God was the first gambler in the universe. And he ain't been right since. Them niggas was out there, I said God and Satan, them niggas was out there on the front lawn of Job's house playing Russian roulette with that man's life. I bet you he will, I bet you he won't. I bet you he will curse me, I bet he won't curse me. And just think, we today forget religion. We train our children to say, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words or names will never hurt me. But God is a victim. He's a vic. That words hurt him. Satan's words that Job will curse you if you take away his riches, it hurt God. It hurt him so much that he gambled on Job's life. We raise our children to walk away from negativity. Here is God philandering and wallowing in a pigsty with Satan himself. We teach our children to stray away from evil. Here is God. Just all yip yap, paddywhack, give a dog a bone, talking his smack to Satan, betting, wagering, gambling on that man's life. We teach our children to avoid negativity. But look at God. We teach our children all of these moral lessons, how to interact when it comes to bad people. Look at God, philandering with the bad person known as Satan. God was supposed to tell Satan, kiss my holy ass and get the fuck on, Satan. I ain't going to make a bet with you. I'm not going to make a wager with you. I am not going to gamble Job's life away. I made him, and I already know what's in his heart of hearts. Whether he has riches or not, he will not curse me. Now kiss my ass. God was supposed to be resound talking to Satan. But we have this weirdo ass story that 99% of you all won't challenge. This leads us to the wilderness and how dirty God did the Israelites, the Hebrews that would leave Egypt after 400 years, many of those years spent in servitude and slavery. You got a people who saw the 10 plagues of Egypt, and they said, sure enough, we got a God. You got a mixed multitude of people in Egypt. Egyptians, Ethiopians, Canaanites, Hittites, and many other nations who also witnessed the 10 plagues of Egypt. And many of them said, we gonna leave with the Hebrews. What a mighty God those people serve. But this God of the Bible, this bloodthirsty, vindictive, unjust, and petty, and homicidal God, he didn't tell the Hebrews what the plague was. No. He let all the Hebrews leave Egypt, and many others that were not Hebrews. He let them all leave. But this bastard that you all call God in the Bible, talk about evil machinations. What does that word mean? Machination. Machination. What does machination mean? I just use it right here. Machination. What's a machination? Machination. A plot or scheme. I said God had a plot and a scheme for those Hebrews leaving Egypt. A devious and evil machination. Yeah. Machination. A scheming or crafty action or artful design intended to accomplish some usually evil end. You see? That's why a lot of times when you hear the word machination, many times it's accompanied by the word evil. An evil machination. Well, what are you talking about, Khalil Amani? Just what are you talking about? How is it evil? How is it evil that God set these people at liberty? What's so bad about that? He freed hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people from bondage, from the rigors of the taskmaster, of the slave master. And you got nerve, Khalil, to call God evil? I call him that because God had a plot. God had a scheme. God had tricks in the bag for these people who thought they were going to go and leave Egypt, and within inside of a few weeks to a month would be in their own land, building the nation of Israel. This is what the people thought. But God plotted on the people. God schemed on the people. And a trip from Egypt to Canaan that is said to be about 250 miles. Or is it 400? Let me fact check myself. Gallery. That's what I said. The distance from Egypt to the land of Canaan was about 250 miles. About a 7 to 10 day walk journey on foot. But this bastard, this vindictive motherfucker that y'all call God, he turned a 7 to 10 day trip into a 40-year wandering and meandering in the wilderness. He did it maliciously, and he did it on purpose. All these Israelites wanted was to go to their own land and begin to build the nation of Israel. They had no idea that when they stepped off the property of Egypt, that they were going to be gone and they were going to die in the wilderness in a 40-day walkabout. 40-year walkabout. They had no idea, as happy as they were the day of manumission, freedom, that for the next 40 years, their lives would end in the wilderness. A 250-mile trek through the wilderness, a 7 to 10-day walk through the wilderness. This vindictive, bloodthirsty, unjust, and petty God, he confounded the leadership and had these niggas walking around for the next 40 years. Do you think that the Hebrews that left Egypt signed up for a 40-year walk? Do you think if they knew that when they stepped off of Egyptian property, the next 40 years would be a perilous and arduous walk in a circle for 40 years? No, they didn't think that shit. They thought that their God loved them. No father, no parent would leave their children in the wilderness for 40 years. But we call this motherfucker our Father. Many of you like to compare Father God with us. But the shit that our Father God has done, the Bible God, no real parent would ever do. No real parent would chastise and chasten and punish a child by making them walk in circles for 40 fucking years. But we call this man, this entity, this deity, our Father, which art in heaven. In my estimation, the real God, the real deity, if there be one, that he's smiling down on me right now for defending, not that he needs me to defend him or her or it, for telling some of y'all that the dude in the Bible, that ain't him. In my estimation, the real deity is going to allow me to live a good old age because I'm speaking the truth and I'm letting it be known to you that those people in the Bible got God wrong. They got him wrong. That I'm defending God to the point of letting you all know that when he created us, as the deist would say, he allowed us total control over the outcome of our lives. That he's not going to be up there in heaven working in individuals' lives. You know, ain't going to be no miracles. Ain't going to be no divine intervention. that he created us and said, do you? And that's what you see. And for the last, I don't know, 100,000 years, you've seen the evolving and evolution of that which it, he, she created. We are left alone. We are left to our own devices. And I'm speaking up for the real creator of the universe, that this motherfucker in the Bible is not it. Not only did this God have some evil machinations when he said, yeah, I'll free you. Yeah, I'll get you up out of there. Yeah, I'm going to let you leave Egypt. But I ain't going to tell these niggas, you might as well stay in Egypt, because most of you niggas going to die in the wilderness. And so this God of the Bible, he gets them out in the wilderness and he starts fucking with those people. He act like he don't understand that these people that he calls Hebrews, these people that he calls Israelites, most of them grew up. Most of them grew up in Egypt. That 99.9% of the people that he brought out of the wilderness. Hold on a minute. I said 99.9% of those people that God would bring out of Egypt, for all intents and purposes, they were Egyptian in their mentality and their thinking and reasoning and their worldview. This all-powerful, all-knowing God, he couldn't reason in that. He got those people out in the wilderness and he saw that they had Egyptian ways. He saw that they would worship Egyptian golden calves, Hathor. He saw that they were stubborn and rebellious. He saw that these Israelites were used to the comfy, cozy confines of Egypt, and they began to murmur and talk shit and threaten Moses' life. Yet this God, he can't understand the mental dealings of his own people. And so what is his solution? What is God's solution to those Hebrew Egyptians? Every Hebrew, every Israelite that left Egypt, mentally they were Egyptian. They had been there for over 400 years. And during their stay in Egypt, the Israelites, the Hebrews, the Jews, they integrated with the dominant culture, the Egyptians. I said the Israelites, they would integrate, not just live next to Israelites, not just live next to Egyptians. They would marry and date and fuck and suck and sexual intercourse with the Egyptians. So many mulattoes and octoroons and quadroons, so many mutts, so many mixed breeds, so many biracial children were made between Hebrews and Egyptians that you couldn't hardly tell these people apart. But God doesn't understand the socio-dynamic of the people that he brings out of Egypt. That these people that he calls his people, the chosen people, he don't understand that these people have integrated with the Egyptians. I said, this God of the Bible, he doesn't understand that these people, his people, have gone through the act of miscegenation. That's a fancy, I said miscegenation. It's a fancy word that means race mixing. This God of the Bible, he doesn't understand that the Israelites underwent something called assimilation, that they were assimilated into the Egyptian culture. This God of the Bible, he doesn't understand a big fancy sociological word like acculturation, where there was an exchange and borrowing of cultures between Israelite and Egyptian. Dress and fashion and music, religion, social and cultural mores were exchanged between Hebrews and Egyptians. This God of the Bible, he seems not to understand that the Hebrews underwent the process of amalgamation. Amalgamation is when you get two or more nations of people that come together and they start interbreeding. They start screwing and fucking. They start making babies and you get these other babies. They are now called an amalgamation. An amalgamation today of an African and a European is I. I am the product of amalgamation. Black people in America are the product of amalgamation. We are amalgamations. The great black historian, Dr. Lerone Bennett Jr. Lerone Bennett Jr. in his seminal work, They Came Before Columbus? No. Before the Mayflower. Before the Mayflower. I said Lerone Bennett Jr., Dr. Lerone Bennett Jr., in his wonderful work, Before the Mayflower, he writes, I believe, on page 260. On 260, how would I know such a thing? Let's go look. Here's his book right here. I haven't looked at this book in probably, 5-6 months. But I believe it's 260. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. And I am wrong. Nonetheless, he does write about the amalgamation, which is black people. Let me see if I can just find it real quick. I don't know why 260 was in my mind, but let me see if I can find it real quick. So find it real quick. I don't need it, but it would be nice to see it. Maybe I won't find it. Of course, I'm coming off the dome. That's why I don't have it ready for you. I don't have it ready for you. Let me see. I don't really need it, but it would be nice to see. Show y'all what I'm talking about amalgamation. Well. Everything you look for, you see, except for what you're looking for, right? That's how it be sometimes. Let me go up here. There it is. Yeah. So, it's talking about, I said reading from the great Lerone Bennett Jr.'s book, Before the Mayflower. He writes right here on page, let me get that page, 325. He writes right here, in the Herskovitz sample, only 22% of black Americans were of unmixed ancestry. Bantu, Mandinka, Yoruba, Akan, Semite, British, Irish, German, French, Spanish, Dutch, Creek, Choctaw, Seminole, Pequot, and Marshpee. Now here it goes. Here it goes. The American black is an extraordinary amalgam. Remember that word amalgam? Amalgamation. The American black is an extraordinary amalgam of different amalgamations. See? The American black is an extraordinary amalgam of different amalgamations. The end product of 260 years of amalgamation. He and she, talking about black people in America, are a genetic metaphor of the impossible possibilities of the peoples of the world, who are not so much equal as complementary, which is, as Tal Howard Chardin and Leopold Senghor said, a higher form, perhaps the highest form of equality. My point is, the God of the Bible seemed not to know anything about this thing called amalgamation. He don't know shit about amalgamation. So what does he do? What does this God do in the Bible, in the wilderness? Instead of saying, well, these are my children, and I know they've been influenced by Egyptian culture, Egyptian religion, Egyptian stagecraft, Egyptian culture, Egyptian mores, Egyptian politics. I know that these people have been in Egypt for 430 years. I'm going to take them on a 7 to 10 day walk across the desert, across the Sinai Peninsula, into the land of Canaan, and I'm going to start teaching them who they are and allowing them to shed, to dismiss and get rid of all of the trappings of Egypt from their minds, from their hearts, and from their souls. That's what a wonderful God would do, who understands that these people have been subjected to a dominant Egyptian African culture, and they need to be reprogrammed. They need to be unbrainwashed from Egyptian ways. That's what a understanding God would do, not this God, the Bible. This God, the Bible, he realized that they all fucked up. He realizes that he's really dealing with DNA. Speaking of DNA, their deoxyribonucleic acid, their DNA may be Hebrew, their DNA may be Jew, their DNA may be Israelite, their DNA traces back to Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. That's their DNA. But mentally, these people are nothing but Egyptians. God is supposed to know that. And God is supposed to be merciful. And God is supposed to be long-suffering. And God is supposed to take his time and redirect and reprogram them and allow them to shed the the Egyptian ways from their brain. But no, he doesn't do that. This unjust and proud and vindictive God of the Bible, you know what he does? The first thing he does is says, you know what? I know what I'll do. I just won't let these niggas go into the promised land. I'm going to make these niggas wander for a generation. 40 years. And 40 years of being in the wilderness is going to speed up many of their deaths. Some of them will get eaten by wild beasts, lions and tigers and bears. Oh my! The harsh terrain and the weather is going to murder and kill these people. I don't want these people going in to the new land thinking like Egyptians. So I'm going to let these niggas wander. I'm going to let them think they are taking a trip around the world. That's the first thing I'm going to do. Secondly, I'm going to make sure that anybody who's 20 years old and up amongst the men, not the women, they'd be all right. But every man who is 20 years old and older, I'm going to make sure I kill these motherfuckers in the wilderness. They ain't going to see it. Because I'm God and I can do shit like that. Because I'm not long-suffering and I'm not patient and I'm not willing to allow them to shed their Egyptian habits and ways. I'm just going to do it my way. I'm not going to let them go into Canaan in 10 days, a 250-mile walk, and then start to retrain, reteach, and re-educate them on who we are as an Israelite people. I'm not going to do that. I ain't got time for that shit. I ain't got time for that shit. So instead of re-educating them, instead of them being in Canaan in 10 days and on their way to nationhood, up you mighty nation, instead of thinking like that, I'm going to confound them. I'm going to let them go around the mulberry bush for 40 years. I know some of them will go, didn't we pass that lake over there like a year ago? Didn't we pass that rock formation like a month ago? You know some of those people were starting to catch on. Didn't we? Is this a deja vu? Have we been here before? But nobody stood up to this God of the Israelites. You see, back in those days, they just didn't have, psychology had not been invented yet. It had not been invented yet. God, the God of the Bible, is a shitty psychologist. An impatient psychologist. Just fucking up all around. Goodness. I said psychology had not been invented yet. Someone who could start to shape the people's minds and make them think as a Hebrew Israelite instead of thinking like an Egyptian. But can you blame a people who have been indoctrinated over 400 years? You want them to come into the wilderness and be somebody else? No psychologist worth his salt would agree with the God of the Bible and how dirty he did them. The God of the Bible his solution to the problem of trying to rearrange and adjust the Israelite mentality, the God of the Bible, his way of trying to redirect and cleanse the brains and the minds of the Israelites, he did that shit maliciously. Evil machination. So I say to you people, if the Israelites knew, if the Hebrews knew that the moment they stepped off of Egyptian property, they were now on a 40-year walk. Do you think they would have stayed in Egypt? Dare I say, hell yeah, a lot of them. Going even further, if the men who were 20 years old and up, hell, if you were 15, if you were 10 years old, if you were 5 years old and knew that you're wandering, that you're meandering, that your sojourn was a 40-year walk, and if you knew that this God that you thought was freeing you, at some point he was going to take a head count, and if you had matured to the age of 20, you were a walking dead man. Would you have left Egypt? Dare I say, hell to the no, no. In other words, there were children that were born in the wilderness. There were young boys, there were baby boys who weren't even born in Egypt. They didn't know anything about Egypt. They were born in the desert. They were born in the wilderness. Ground zero, born 2 days after they left Egypt. There were pregnant women that would leave Egypt and deliver their babies in the wilderness. And those babies would mature to the age of 20. And God would say in several passages, all of the males who are 20 years old and upwards, I'm going to kill them in the wilderness. They shall not see the land that flows with milk and honey. They shall not cross over Jordan. They will not see Canaan. So this God would murder young men who were 20 years old that was actually born in the wilderness. They weren't even all, Egyptified yet. They weren't Egyptified. They didn't live in Egypt. But the Bible doesn't make no distinctions. God says in the Bible, 20 years and upwards, they ain't gonna see. I'm gonna make sure they die in the wilderness. And you got a motherfucker on YouTube, Struggle Doctrine, Israel Doctrine, had nerve to say that most of the people that God killed in the wilderness were not Hebrews, were not Israelites. They were the mixed multitude. Where does he get such a stupid ass understanding of the events of the wilderness? I don't know. But yeah, y'all heard him. Some of y'all heard him. There's a YouTuber out here who teaches Bible, who tries to teach Bible, named Israel Doctrine. He made the blanket statement that most of the killing in the wilderness were not Hebrews, were not Israelites, were not Jews, but that God was killing the foreigners among them, the Egyptians among them, the Ethiopians among them, the Canaanites among them. That's who God was mostly killing. It's a damnable lie. God killed amongst the Hebrews and the mixed multitude every man that was 20 years old and upwards. And God would let these motherfuckers wander for 40 years. I'm talking now I'm talking about the women and the children that would die from animal bites, animal attacks, old age, pestilence, just common shit, diseases. No, they were mostly Israelites. They were mostly Hebrews. For the mixed multitude was never as big as the actual Hebrews that would leave. We have to assume that. It would be stupid to assume that more people amongst the mixed multitude numbered more than the actual people that left. I don't believe that for a moment. And you shouldn't either. But a doofus, a dumb fucking Bible teacher like Israel Doctrine, he's never read where God says several times, I'm killing all the men that are 20 years old and up. I'm not going to let them see Canaan. Furthermore, I'm going to kill this whole generation simply by letting them walk around. And so if you left there, if you were 40 or 50 years old when you left Egypt, chances are another 40 years, you're in your 90s, chances are you're going to die in the wilderness. The walk alone. But I want to just put some context and say it's not about not believing that there's a higher power. But this God of the Bible, he's done some egregious murdering. Did you know that he actually killed 42 children for making jokes about Elisha the prophet being bald-headed? Did you know that? That's how maniacal this God of the Bible is. Again, as I close, I would rather like to think that the real God, the real deity, the real creator, the real manifestation of the universe that set this in motion, I would like to think that he's actually happy with me as I remove the real deity from this motherfucker in the Bible that men have created and given the credit to as a God, as the God. So while some of you all are going, watch out, lightning is about to strike around Khalil. Khalil is saying a lot of crazy shit. God gonna strike Khalil down. No. I would rather like to think that the real force in the universe is saying, finally, somebody who's clearing my good name. Somebody who clearly sees I'm not like this homicidal and petty and vindictive and jealous and proud and unjust and unforgiving and vindictive and bloodthirsty and misogynistic and racist piece of shit in the Bible that men have created and said that was me. I like to think that the real God is pleased with me. Could I be wrong? Maybe I am. But all I know is If the God of the Bible, if the God of the Bible is the real deal Holyfield, if the God of the Bible is the real God, just give me a one-way ticket to hell. I ain't fucking with that nigga. I ain't fucking with that nigga. With that, y'all, I am Professor Khalil Amani. We'll be back for some more talk. See you soon. Peace.